Hi, and welcome to our online discussions. Before watching the video, I only have two simple requests for you. First is to get a paper or a notebook and jot down all the important ideas that you need to know. Second is to focus. Happy learning! Good afternoon, everyone. So for now, our last discussion, I'm sorry for I will not be able to let you see my face because of some technical problems in my webcam. But we're still going to continue our discussion for week 6. This is Rizal's Heroism, the Nation and the World. So for week 6, we're going to discuss section 1, or the life in exile, section 2, trial and execution, and section 3, the Transcendental Hero. For section 1, this focuses on the life of Jose Rizal while exiled in Dapitan. It narrates how Rizal, as an ilustrado, perceives the nation through his experiences with the cultural minorities and a display of his unrelenting nationalism. This section shows how Rizal valued life and his country. The life of Jose Rizal has been narrated and talked about in countless academic works from his early childhood up to his life abroad. However, his experience as an exile in Dapitan is often overlooked. When Rizal returned to Manila on June 26, 1892, he was already declared as an enemy of the state because of his novels. His every move was monitored by the Spanish authorities, searching all houses he frequented and interrogating the people he knew. Despite this, on July 3, 1892, Rizal and his friends were still able to establish La Liga Filipina. So the group's safe house was the house of Doroteo Onghunco, located in Tondo, Manila. Nangyari ito nang tumalikod si Jose Rizal sa Espanya sa mga kasamahan niya sa La Solidaridad. The La Liga Filipina, a social reformist group advocating social reforms through legal means, was considered a threat by the Spanish authorities, which led to Rizal's arrest on July 6, 1892. Then, Governor General Eulogio Despujol ordered the arrest as a political move to appease the friars. He publicized in Gaceta de Manila that the grounds for Rizal's arrest were his anti-Catholic and anti-friar stance which manifested in his writings. Ilang araw lamang mula sa pagpupulong ng La Liga Filipina ay agad na ipinatapon si Jose Rizal sa Dapitan. So after his arrest, Rizal was deported to Dapitan, a province in Zamboanga, a place far from his family and friends, so communication with them would be difficult. The Spanish authorities believed that sending Rizal to Dapitan would make his life miserable. However, Rizal proved them wrong. In fact, being an exile was considered a very fruitful episode of his life. So Rizal was exiled for 4 years in Dapitan. And during those years, Rizal focused on serving the people and society through his civic works, medical practices, agricultural projects, and education. He also devoted his time to improving his artistic and literary skills. Rizal, however, did not forget what he liked doing most, writing letters to his friends in Europe, especially to Ferdinand Blumentritt and Reinhold Rost. Rizal also became more interested in studying the lifestyle, values, and beliefs of the cultural minorities. Since he was living within their community, he realized that they should not be excluded from the narrative of the Philippine society. In his day-to-day interactions with them, Rizal understood that they were important in the formation of a national consciousness. So during Rizal's stay in Dapitan, napakaraming tao ang nakinabang sa kanya at natulungan niya. Unang-una ay yung mga kabataan na tinuturuan niya doon sa Dapitan, maraming mga magulang na nakikipag-usap kay Rizal para tanggapin yung mga anak nila para lamang makapag-aral ang mga iyon at matuto. Yun ay sa kabila ng pangyayari na pinipigilan ng mga praile ang mga tao doon sa Dapitan na huwag makipag-usap kay Jose Rizal. So kahit gano'n, napakaraming nagawa ni Rizal. Meron siyang parang naging school, meron siyang parang naging clinic kung saan maraming dumadayo. Nagkaroon din siya ng mga agricultural projects kung saan yung mga mag-aaral na tinuturuan niya ay katulong niya sa pagpapalago at pag-aayos ng naging farm niya sa dapitan. Gayun din, hindi natinag si Rizal sa pagsulat at sa pag-discover ng iba't ibang bagay. Marami siyang na-discover ng mga insekto na ipinangalan sa kanya. In the course of his exile, the Spanish authorities offered to pardon him if he would retract his proclamations against the church. Rizal did not yield. He was still very vocal in his contempt toward the practices of the Catholic Church. Jesuit priests put in a lot of effort so that Rizal would perform religious rites and submit himself to confession. He engaged in scholarly debates about religion with Fray Pablo Pastels, the superior of the Jesuit mission in the Philippines. So, nandun pa lamang si Rizal sa dapitan ay marami ng taong kumakausap sa kanya, particularly yung mga pari doon, na mag-retract na, bawiin yung mga sanabi niya tungkol sa pamahalaan ng mga praile, pamahalaan ng Espanya, at siya ay magiging malaya. Pero hindi pa rin natinag ang advokasya at ang paniniwala ni Jose Rizal. Walang kahit sinong nakapigil ng kanyang pananaw at paninindigan kahit nga yung superior ng Jesuit Mission of the Philippines. So this exchange of heated arguments further revealed the anti-church Rizal, his disdain for the abuses committed by the friars. Just like the previous attempts of other friars, Fray Pastels tried his best to make Rizal reconsider his stance against the church, but it was all in vain. So it was during his exile that Rizal met Josephine Bracken. So Bracken is an Irish woman from Hong Kong. Bracken accompanied her blind foster father, George Toffer, who came to seek Rizal's help about his cataract. So all the way from Hong Kong, Bracken and his foster father, Toffer, fly to the Philippines para lamang makapagpagamot kay Jose Rizal kasi nga naging maingay yung balita na magaling manggamot itong si Jose Rizal. So from that moment, Rizal and Bracken instantly fell in love. So Dr. Pio Valenzuela was sent as an emissary by Andres Bonifacio, who is the leader of the Katipunan. That's to seek Rizal's opinion and approval of an armed rebellion against the Spanish authorities. So Rizal was outrightly opposed to the idea of an armed rebellion. Ayaw talaga ni Rizal. For him, the Filipinos did not need to wage a bloody revolution to gain independence. He believed that Filipinos were not united and fully educated, and that the Katipunan lacked the machinery to defeat the Spaniards. At this point, Rizal was hoping for concessions and reforms from Spain. So, nung dumating si Pio Valenzuela na nagsama pa ng bulag para lamang makapunta or makausap si Jose Rizal, humingi siya ng payo kung itutuloy ba o hindi yung Katipunan or kung sasama ba si Rizal sa Katipunan. At ang sagot ni Jose Rizal ay hindi pa kaya ng mga Pilipino sapagkat unang-una wala tayong mga machineries na pwedeng gamitin para makalaban ng ayos sa mga Espanyol kasi hindi kakayanin ng mga gulok ng mga Katipunero na labanan yung mga advanced technologies na ginamit ng Spaniards para sa machinery kung magkakaroon man ng rebellion. Pero malabo pa rin kung ano ba talaga yung naging point ni Jose Rizal dito. Kasi ang sinabi pa niya, merong mga historians na nagsasabi na ang sinabi ni Jose Rizal ay humingi ng tulong sa mga mayayamang tao para makabili ng mga baril or ng mga armas na gagamitin para sa rebellion. Meron namang mga nagsabi na hindi talaga umagri si Jose Rizal sa tanong at mungkahi ni Pio Valenzuela. We now proceed to the trial and execution. So this presents the journey of Jose Rizal to Bagong Bayan from his last homecoming to his trial and death. Jose Rizal is regarded as one of the martyrs who sacrificed their lives for the attainment of the rights of the Filipinos and of Philippine freedom. So martyrs usually suffer due to their religious faith and beliefs, but a martyr can also suffer persecution and death for advocating, renouncing, and refusing to advocate or renounce a belief as demanded by an external party. So Rizal is truly a martyr for demonstrating an unwavering commitment to free the Filipinos from colonial bondage. Rizal's death was considered as an impactful episode in Philippine history because it was not only the death of a martyr, but also the birth of reforms in society and the transformation of the lives of Filipinos. So Rizal was charged and put to death for what his enemies considered as subversion. He was also accused of forming an organization that posed a severe threat to the existing social order at that time. So, sinampahan si Jose Rizal ng salang rebellion or pagre-rebelde sa gobyerno. Even the supposed trial where Rizal could have defended himself was a hoax. There was allegedly a preliminary investigation that ran for 5 days. After the investigation, Rizal was said to have been informed of the charges against him before a judge and advocate. So, doon sa sinasabing trial ni Jose Rizal, para sa maraming Pilipino at sa maraming historians, ay isang fake. Dahil bago pa man magkaroon ng paglilitis ay may desisyon na ang korte kung anong gagawin kay Jose Rizal. At yun ay ang patayin si Jose Rizal. So tatlo nga ang naging hatol kay Jose Rizal. Una ay yung pag-aalsa o rebellion. Pangalawa ay sedisyon. Ang pangatlo ay ang konspirasyon o pagbuo ng mga samahang iligal. Pinagbibintangan si Jose Rizal na siya ay kapangkat at kapanalig ng mga nag-aalsa sa KKK. Rizal was even presented with two kinds of evidence. So, those are documentary evidences and testimonials which he could not refute o hindi niya maitanggi kasi marami ang tumayo o tumestigo sa paratang sa kanya. So, the documentary evidence included but not limited to the following: the letters he wrote to the propagandists and to his family, and the letters he received from them, the poem Kundiman and the Masonic document honoring Rizal's patriotic services. Also found was a letter signed by Di Masalang, or his pen name, yung pen name niya sa La Solidaridad, which stated that he prepared a safe refuge for Filipinos who suffered persecution from the Spain authorities. An anonymous and undated letter to the editor of a Hong Kong telegraph censuring the banishment of Rizal to the Pitan, a transcript of the speech of Pinkian or the pen name of Emilio Jacinto in a reunion of the Katipunan, a transcript of the speech of Tiktik or the pen name of Jose Toriano Santiago, and the poem by Laong Laan, his another name, titled Himno at Talisay. Meanwhile, the testimonies against Rizal were given by Martin Constantino, Aguedo del Rosario, Jose Reyes, Moises Salvador, Jose Dizon, Domingo Franco, Deodato Arellano, Pio Valenzuela, Antonio Salazar, Francisco Quizon, and Timoteo Paez. Rizal, however, did not know or had not met most of the people included in the list. Rizal was immediately sent to trial and held in prison after the evidences were reviewed. Alongside his incarceration, his properties were seized as indemnity and had to pay 1 million pesos. Instead of a civilian lawyer, an army officer, Luis Taviel de Andrade, represented Rizal in court. Noong mga panahon na yun, si Pasiano ay isa sa mga dinakip at pinarusahan at pilit na pinapalagda sa kasulatang nagpapatunay na kasangkot si Rizal sa himagsikan, kung kaya't may ilang mga movies ni Rizal na nagpapakitang si Pasiano ay tinotorture para lang mapaamin, subalit hindi talaga umamin si Pasiano. Noong December 2, 1896, ipinadala ni Governor General Ramon Blanco kay Rafael Dominguez na tanging huwes panghukbo noong panahon na yun o military judge ang hatol kay Jose Rizal. Ang nakalagay dito, lumalabas na si Jose Rizal Mercado, ang nasasakdal, ang siyang pangunahing tagapagtatag at buhay na kaluluwa ng insureksyong Pilipino, ang tagapagtatag ng mga samahan, pahayagan at libong nagpapaapoy at nagpapalaganap ng mga ideya hinggil sa revolusyon. So yun ang nakalagay sa hatol kay Jose Rizal na ipinadala sa kanya sa pamamagitan ni Rafael Dominguez. During his trial, Rizal defended himself when he said that he did not question the jurisdiction of the court, but he had nothing to admit on the charges against him, as well as on the declarations of the witnesses who testified against him. So, ang mga manifesto ni Rizal nung panahon na iyon, isinulat niya yung mga nobela dahil gusto niyang ibahagi sa taong bayan na makakamit lang natin ang kalayaan sa pamamagitan ng edukasyon at ng pagsisikap. Na ikinagulat din niya na ang pangalan niya ay nagiging pamansag ng mga ilang revolusyon na nung panahon na yon ay nagiging password pa nga sa KKK ang pangalan ni Jose Rizal at may mga picture din siya sa mga meeting room or sa mga lugar kung saan nagmi-meeting yung mga katipunero. Nilinaw din niya na tinututulan niya ang balak na revolusyon dahil hindi pa raw tayo handa para dito. So what he only needed to clarify was the charge that he dealt with political matters while in exile. Despite all pleadings, the court voted for Rizal to be sentenced to death. So doon sa pagpupulong or sa paglilitis ng kaso ni Rizal, si Taviel ang naging tagapagtanggol niya. Naging madamdamin ang talumpati ni Taviel upang maipanalo ang kaso ni Rizal, subalit naging labas-pasok lamang sa tenga ng hukom dahil sila ay napagdesisyonan na or may napagdesisyon ng hatol bago pa man magsimula ang paglilitis. Sinabi pa nga ni Taviel na ang hukom ay hindi na dapat maging mapaghiganti, manapay dapat maging makatarungan. Pinatunayan din ni Rizal sa paglilitis na iyon na wala siyang kaugnayan sa revolusyon dahil siya mismo ang nagpayo kay Dr. Pio Valenzuela na huwag silang mag-aklas. Hindi rin siya nakipagsulatan sa mga elementong radikal at revolusyonaryo. Ginamit ang mga revolusyonaryo ang kanyang pangalan nang hindi niya alam kung siya may sala, ay di sana'y tumakas na siya papunta sa Singapore. Kung siya man ay may kaugnayan sa revolusyon, di sana'y tumakas siya sakay ng isang bintang moro at di nagtayo ng tahanan, ospital at di bumili ng lupain sa dapitan nung nanalo siya sa loto. Sinabi din ni Jose Rizal na kung siya ang pinuno ng revolusyon, bakit siya kinonsulta ng mga revolusyonaryo para sa isang revolusyon? Samantalang inamin naman ni Jose Rizal na siya ang sumulat ng konstitusyon ng La Liga Filipina, ngunit nilinaw niya na hindi ito isang samahang pangrevolusyon kundi isang pansibikong asosasyon. Binigyang diin din niya na hindi nagtagal ang La Liga Filipina dahil pagkatapos ng unang pulong ay ipinatapon agad siya sa dapitan na parang 3 araw lamang yata ang nakalipas pagka-uwi ni Rizal, mula sa Espanya, pinatapon agad siya sa Mindanao or sa dapitan kung saan hindi siya madaling mararating ng kanyang pamilya at ng kung sino mang kaibigan na malapit sa kanya. Sabi din ni Jose Rizal, kung muling nabuhay ang La Liga Filipina, pagkaraan ng 9 na buwan, ay wala siyang kinalaman doon. Sinabi rin ni Jose Rizal na hindi itinataguyod ng La Liga Filipina ang mga simulain ng revolusyonaryo sapagkat kung oo, sana'y hindi itinatag ang katipunan. Ang dahilan ng mapait na komentaryo niya ay dahil noong 1890, ang kanyang pamilya ay inuusig, kinumpiska ang bahay, bodega, lupain at iba pa, at ang kanyang kapatid na lalaki at ang mga bayaw niya ay ipinatapon sa iba't ibang lugar. Binigyang liwanag din ni Jose Rizal na ang buhay niya sa dapitan ay kapuri-puri kahit itanong pa sa mga komandanteng naroon at sa mga misyonaring pari na nakakasama ni Jose Rizal. Noong siya din ay nagtalumpati sa bahay ni Onghongko, hindi ito toong pinunaw ng kanyang talumpati ang revolusyon. Alam ng mga kaibigan niya na tutol siya sa armadong revolusyon, kaya bakit nagpadala ang katipunan ng isang sugo sa dapitan na hindi niya kakilala? Ayun ay si Pio Valenzuela. Dahil ang mga kilala niya ay alam na hindi siya papayag sa anumang uri ng kilusang marahas. Despite all the pleadings, the court voted for Rizal to be sentenced to death. During his last hours, he was visited by his family and wrote a letter to his second brother, Ferdinand Blumentritt. Ito ang nakasaad sa sulat ni Jose Rizal kay Ferdinand Blumentritt na may date na Disyembre 29, 1896. Mahal kong kapatid, kapag natanggap mo ang liham na ito, patay na ako. Bukas ng ika-7, babarilin ako. Subalit inosente ako sa krimen ng rebelyon. Mamamatay akong may payapang konsensya. Adyo, aking pinakamatalik, pinakamamahal na kaibigan, at huwag mo akong pag-iisipan ng masama. Jose Rizal. Kumusta sa buong pamilya, kay Senyora Rosa, Loleng, Conradito at Federico? Iniiwan ko sa iyo ang isang libro bilang alaala. So in December 30, 1896, Rizal set on his walk from Fort Santiago to Bagong Bayan Square where he eventually faced his death. So nung alas 7 ng umaga ng December 30, 1896, binaril si Jose Rizal sa Bagong Bayan. So up to the last minute at Fort Santiago, Rizal defied orders from his captor as he was instructed to face the sea and turn his back against the firing squad. But Rizal wanted to do otherwise as he believed na yung mga binabaril ng nakatalikod ay yung mga traidor. Naniniwala pa rin si Jose Rizal hanggang sa huling sandali ng kanyang buhay na wala siyang ginawang masama at malinis ang kanyang konsensya, kung kaya't gusto niyang humarap sa firing squad para ipakita ang kanyang innocence sa paratang sa kanya. Pero hindi siya pinayagan ng Spaniard authorities at pinilit siyang tumalikod. Binaril siya sa likod imbes na sa ulo. The shot at the back allowed him to turn his body sideways and fell on the ground with his face upward. Rizal's last word, as that of Jesus Christ, was consummatum est, or it is finished. So the photo that you see is actually the firing squad that happened during Rizal's death. After 39 years of Rizal's death, one significant issue that came out in 1935 was the argument about Rizal's retraction of all his statements against the Catholic Church and the Spaniard government via a document. So that is a handwritten retraction letter allegedly written by Rizal. So up to this point, the authenticity of the document has been subject of debate. So hanggang ngayon, hindi pa rin nasasagot kung kung totoo bang si Rizal ay nag-retract or binawi ba niya lahat ng aligasyon niya tungkol sa Rizal sa Spanish government at saka sa mga Spanish friars or hindi. Kasi ang sabi ng ibang historian, binawi ni Rizal. Pero kung binawi ni Rizal, bakit pinatay pa rin siya? Sabi naman ng iba, kung hindi, bakit may retraction paper na pinagdedebatihan na sinasabing sulat kamay talaga ni Jose Rizal, pero ang hindi matukoy ay kung totoo yung perma na yon. We are now proceeding to Section 3, or the Transcendental Hero. This section discusses the impact of Rizal and his lasting contributions to Philippine society. It presents the reasons why Rizal is considered a national hero. From what have been said about him in the previous chapters, it is evident how great Jose Rizal is. Nakita natin kung paano siya lumaban, kung paano niya pinanindigan ng kanyang mga pananaw sa buhay, at kung paano niya pinagsikapang matapos sulatin ang kanyang mga nobela sa kabila ng mga problemang kinaharap niya. His greatness did not fade even after his death. More scholars from both the Philippines and the world studied about him and his contributions to Filipino national consciousness. Whether those studies complement or criticize Rizal, the power of Rizal's character and influence that transcend geographical and generational is unquestionable. From the annals of history, it can be noted that despite his middle-class status, he also struggled and suffered because of the prevailing social conditions during those times. He was so talented and skilled that he always had the advantage over his contemporaries in terms of education and the fight against the excesses of friar-led Spanish colonial rule. His leadership skills were also exceptional as he led the propaganda movement, or the unwavering campaign for political and social reforms. He showcased his writing skills when he wrote for the La Solidaridad to translate the pleas of the propagandists. So, siya ay naging representative ng mga tao or ng appeal ng mga propagandista. Rizal's aspiration for what is ideal never ended. This aspiration took the form of fighting against injustice in society. His fervid goal while growing up and being educated was the liberation of his fellow Filipinos from the bondage of political tyranny and the corollaries, misery, and ignorance associated with it. So ano man ang pinagdaanan niya, ang pinanghawakan ni Jose Rizal ay ang kanyang burning passion and goal para mapalaya ang mga Pilipino sa pagkakasakop ng mga Espanyol, sa ignorance, sa misery na lahat na nararanasan ng mga tao noong panahon na iyon. So, Jose Rizal as the first Filipino. He was the central figure of the revolutionary movement. He was a poet, novelist, ophthalmologist, historian, doctor, polemical essayist, and moralist. He was the first Filipino as evidenced by his novels, especially the No Limit Tangere. So in his novel, Rizal pictured the Philippines as a nation even though those who lived in it had no common name yet to refer to themselves, apart from the pejorative terms Indio and Mestizo that the Spanish colonizers called them. Rizal then was the first to imagine this social whole, which explains why he is remembered today as the first Filipino. He was also the first one to use the term Filipino to prove that the Filipino natives had a culture of their own prior to colonization and that they were not inferior to the white man. He studied Philippine history. His interest in this aspect of our nationhood was that he compelled him to annotate Antonio de Morga's Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas. Rizal shattered the myth of the indolence of the Filipinos because he believed that the Filipino is a worthy race. He likewise extensively studied Tagalog and attempted to produce a comprehensive Tagalog dictionary to slam the Filipinos who belittled their native tongue. He still embraced the term Indio, despite all the negative connotations, and turned it to a term of dignity and nobility. All of these contributions were done by Jose Rizal. At lagi niyang pinapatunayan na ang mga Pilipino ay hindi mababang uri ng mga tao. Napakataas ng pagtingin ni Jose Rizal sa mga Pilipino at lagi niya tayong ina-uplift. Pinag-aralan niya ang kasaysayan ng Pilipinas bago pa man siya mabuhay or ang pre-colonial Philippines. Inanotate niya si Morga sa mga maling sinabi ni Morga tungkol sa mga Pilipino. Ay pinabulaanan niya yung mga nagsasabi na tamad ang mga Pilipino at pinatunayan niya na ang pagiging isang Indio ay pagiging dignified, pagiging noble. Yun ang ginawa ni Jose Rizal sa kanyang buong buhay. It's also noteworthy to mention that Rizal's foremost dream was for the Philippines to be known as a nation of writers and intellectuals. He aimed at making the Filipino race known in the world. Rizal's constant effort to improve himself showed how much he valued his own education. He even took sculpting and painting, aside from the prescribed academic subjects. To further improve his craft, he learned other languages including German, which enabled him to translate Friedrich Schiller's Wilhelm Tell into Tagalog. And finally, he constantly kept himself updated on the current trends in science and philosophy by reading and attending scholarly dialogues. Rizal hoped that these achievements would influence all Filipinos to build a legacy. Rizal's achievements secured him a status unparalleled by any other Filipino, not in his time and at present. His greatness can be seen in the different ideals and philosophies he wanted his generation and the future generations to live by. So, listed below are some of these ideals and philosophies. First, his social philosophy deals with man in society, influential factors in human life, racial problems, social conflicts, and social justice. This also includes poverty and wealth, social ideals, reforms, youth and greatness, history and progress, and the future Philippines. Colonies should not be abused but instead trained for self-governance. Contrary to what the Spaniards thought, Rizal held that salvation was not only for the Catholics, that fasting is not a sacrifice. He did not agree with the sale of religious items or the cross, medals, rosaries, and the like. People should aim for the study of human behavior and the tendencies of being good and evil. The body of knowledge that a person should acquire includes the wisdom of humanhood developed through people's experience in society. And education was foremost for Rizal. He believed that education is vital in national development as it frees people from ignorance. Education can save the country from domination. Nakikita niyo lahat or nakalatag lahat ang achievement ni Jose Rizal at ang kanyang mga pananaw sa buhay. So lahat ng ito halos ay sumusuporta sa future ng Philippines. He always look up to the Philippines. He always want what's the best for Philippines. Kasi nga, gusto niya yung mga tao sa Pilipinas, hindi lamang siya, ay nabubuhay sa tamang karapatan, nabubuhay ng may maayos na kalagayan. So what you see in the photos are the last hours of Jose Rizal during his execution in Bagong Bayan. Nakatali ang dalawang siko, maraming tao. Sabi din ng mga historians, ang bumaril kay Jose Rizal ay hindi mga armadong Espanyol, kundi mga Pilipino rin na naniniwala sa mga Espanyol noong panahon na iyon. A hero is often defined as a prominent or central personage taking admirable part in any remarkable action or event, a person of distinguished valor or enterprise in danger, and a person honored after death by public worship because of their exceptional service to mankind. Having all the citations about Jose Rizal, it's not any more unthinkable that he was chosen as the national hero. Rizal is the epitome of everything mentioned in the definitions of a hero. He's a towering figure of the propaganda movement and in other affairs of the society. His works, achievements, and contributions in various fields have been remarkably influential. Rizal, in the face of danger, was bold despite the odds. And lastly, he was honored even more after his death because of the legacies he left behind. There's no law, executive order, or proclamation that has been enacted or issued that officially proclaims any Filipino historical figure as a national hero. That's according to NHCP 2012. Thus, Rizal's title is sometimes questioned. Accordingly, the title that Rizal holds is more of a tribute to the continued veneration or acclamation of the people towards him. In 1898, General Emilio Aguinaldo issued a decree that declares December 30 as a day of national mourning for the heroes and victims of the Philippine Revolution, including Rizal. Then, in 1900s, American Governor-General and Chairman of the Second Philippine Commission, William Howard Taft, suggested to revere Rizal as the national hero. This is to recognize his contributions to the significant social transformations that took place in the Philippines. This is from NCCA 2015. Instead of a single law hailing a national hero, laws and proclamations were made in honor of all Filipino national heroes. In fact, 1996 was declared as the Year of the Filipino Heroes in time for the centennial anniversary of the Philippine Revolution marked by the cry of Pugadlawin in 1896. Then, August 30 was declared as the National Heroes Day. Despite the absence of an official declaration, Rizal has been a symbol of what the Filipinos lack as a race. This is ironic though, since Rizal was in search of a true Filipino identity, which turned out to be his own self. To date, Rizal is the most popular Filipino whose portraits and monuments are seen not only in the Philippines but around the world. Rizal is a Filipino hero because he embodied the qualities of a true hero and made Filipinos realize the best of what they can be despite difficult social conditions. Both his struggles and triumphs inspired and ignited the Katipunan-led revolution, making the Philippines the first independent republic in Asia. Up to this day, it is still what Rizal fought for that leads this generation to continue realizing his dream of a nation where every Filipino is truly free. Dito natatapos ang ating talakayan sa kursong GED 103 or The Life and Works of Rizal. Nagtapos man ang kurso, subalit hindi dito nagtatapos ang ating responsibilidad, pananaw at panindigan bilang totoong mga Pilipino. Maraming salamat.
Mga kababayan,